what is the message that you want to take forward, Cameron?
The message that I want to take forward is bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
I've obviously had a lot of experience in my life where I've been through turmoil and ups, extreme ups and downs and extreme downs. And I just want people to understand that everybody goes through this and that it's not bad. It's just a step to the next thing. And this year for Cam's Bipolar blog, which we're talking about, is that I want to take it to a level where everybody can see it, not only see it, but read it and take what they want from it. So I've written Traversing the Unsound Mind.
Mm-hmm.
I've written A Welcome Message. I've written Major Struggle. The title's not in my mind right now, but it's a long one.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Major Minor Struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So major struggles that cause minor, or major extremes that cause minor struggles and challenges, I believe is the title. Then there's depression, which is extreme emotions in a downward direction, either anger or isolation or sadness in the absolute extreme. And then there's the opposite direction, which is up, which is kind of where I was headed at the end of last year. I was headed to a direction that I wasn't familiar with, but I had been to before, and basically I'm just reaching for the moon and trying to get there when I'm in that mood, and that's hypomania, extreme bout of energy. So that's where I've kind of gone with the blog, and all those blog posts are online. You can visit them at cam.majorminor.ca.
Okay, and that's major as in M-A-J-O-R, and minor as in M-I-N-E-R.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm Cam Minor.
Yes, of course. So why don't you back us up and start at the beginning? At the beginning. Because you're coming in 2015, kind of in the middle, if you like, because you have life ahead of you. But started sort of at the beginning, wherever that beginning is for you.
So I was born March 15th, 1986. I'm 28, turning 29 this year on March 15th. And so I'm 28 going on whatever age I am in the moment, which I've said before, and I don't really know what age that is, because although my physical age is 28, I feel like I can be 5. I feel like I can be 55. It depends on what I feel in the moment. So I'm not going to sit here and be immature about it, but at the same time, I'm not 55 yet, so I just don't have that life to look back on yet. So at 28, I'm looking back to last year, and it was a good year for me. I just reached an extreme again, that I was reaching for the moon, and I almost got there, basically, in my mind. I was there. I was on the other side of the universe. I was time traveling in my mind. I can go forward, backward, up, down, side to side. My mind can just bend time to a time where I want to be, and so I can go backwards to the beginning of my life, or I can go forwards to the end, and it's scary for some people because they can't do that. And so when I start talking in a tone or a reality that isn't quite in touch with everybody else's reality, then it scares people. And my family, especially immediate family, my sister, she understands because she's been there through thick and thin. My mom is my mother, and she worries all the time about my well-being, my safety, my health, everything, much like I do, but she worries from a mother's point of view, and that is a point of view that I can't relate to in every aspect. So I'm not a mother, but at the same time I do try and listen to her. I try and listen to everybody. And then there's Dad, who is great at 911 emergencies, but is not always there when it is at the stage where you might need help, but you might not. And so if you dial 911 and you get dad, then it's already too late for any plan B. It's just straight into 911 emergency, and that isn't something that I like to do either. It's just that when you call dad, all he hears is emergency in your voice. So at the end of last year, I went through an experience through November and December where I was locked up, and I was in a system known as the hospital, and it is not a reality that I like to be in, because it is not reality. And so now we're at present day, and I've passed through that reality back into life where I like to be, and it's good. I like it. I like being where I am, and 2015 is going to be a good year for Cam Minor, Major Minor, and Cam's Bipolar blog.
So when I asked you to start at the beginning, what I was meaning was when did you first start to have the experience of the bipolar?
Okay, so when I was first experiencing bipolar, I can go back to my childhood and I can see and recognize that I was probably going through bipolar my whole life. But it never reached an extreme that somebody else recognized until I was depressed. And that happened in 2008. I was extremely depressed at the end, by April 2008, I was in the worst dire straits that you can be in as a depressed person, and I was just ready to find an escape plan. And that is another scary thing for a lot of people, because if you want to escape this world, there is many ways out, and you don't need anybody's permission to do it. You just can do it whenever you want, and whether you're successful in escaping this world or not is another story. And although I wanted out of the world, I didn't at the same time, because I still had things here that were unfinished. And so it's a place that you don't want to go ever in your life, down to the very bottom. And so what the extreme moment that brought it to everybody else's attention was, I forget the date exactly, but it would have been in April 2008, and I had a very bad car accident. And I was driving when I shouldn't have been. I was in a frame of mind that is not a frame of mind that you should be behind the wheel of a car. The full story is a lot longer than I have time to say on camera, but basically I was invited to Guelph on a night where I was in Newmarket. I was living in Guelph at the time, although I was home for a visit in Newmarket. And my buddy invited me to come out for a night of partying, and I hadn't partied in quite a long time at that point. And a long time at that point was several weeks or months, probably the whole year. I hadn't even partied to my full potential, because I wasn't in a frame of mind where I wanted to party or socialize or communicate with the world. So I'm at home sitting on my couch, and he calls and he says, "Hey, we're partying in Guelph." I say, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything. I'll just drive to Guelph right now. I have a car on the driveway. I have keys by the front door. I'll just get in my car and drive to Guelph." By the time I got to Guelph, it was not a place where I should be. I was not supposed to be in Guelph that night. I was supposed to be at home in a safe place, and I wasn't. I was in my car. And so driving into Guelph, there was a red light that I emergency stopped for because I was going too fast, and all wheels fell off the car, and I lost control of the car and flipped it several times into a fence. And that's when I realized that I'm not leaving this world that day. I'm just gonna be in this place for a very long time. And when I lost control of the car and it flipped, that moment was in slow motion for eternity, because I felt every single thing that happened to the car, and I was just in a head spin, because I was not in a place where I wanted to be, and I lost control of my life, including the car and vehicle in which I was driving. And so 2008, that day, was a wake-up call.
It certainly was. And what happened after that?
I was hospitalized. Later that year, in September of 2008, I went to the other extreme, and it took all summer to get there. I was put on medication after the car accident for depression and bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed at the time bipolar type 1, but I didn't want to believe it, because I didn't know what bipolar was, really. I just had heard what society had called it, and it was shameful, and it was somebody you didn't want to be. It was a mental disorder. You were no longer capable of controlling your mind if you were bipolar, because you would reach depression and mania. And mania is the top of the world, and depression is the bottom of the world. And neither place is a place where you should stay for long, because it is very extreme in every meaning of the word. It's just the very, very top or the very, very bottom of whatever cycle you're in. And so for me, 2008 was the first extreme cycle, and I write about it in Traversing the Unsound Mind.
Okay, so how was it that at the time of the car accident, a decision was made that you were bipolar, if you were in the depressed cycle at that moment?
Because there had been moments already in my life where I had been at the top of the cycle, and it was just never recognized as bipolar yet until the stories started getting told. And I wasn't the one speaking at this point. I was just a passenger in my own vehicle, and so other people did the talking for me. My mother, my father, my sister all did the speaking for me to the professionals known as doctors and nurses and all the staff at the hospital. The first person I saw was my family physician with my mother after the car accident, and he said, yeah, you need to be on medication because you're in a place that you shouldn't be, and you need to come out of that place. You need to rise up and live again, but you also don't want to go to the top, because the top is another place that you don't want to be. Because the top is not in this world and the bottom isn't in this world, and everything in between is. So that's where you should probably stay, is just in this little area where everything is okay.
So what were some of the previous highs that you had experienced before 2008?
Well, I had been in university for 3 years by this point. So I started university in September 2005. My whole life I had been through extremes of highs and lows. They were just never recognized as bipolar disorder until I was 21, 22. And so probably as a child I could have been diagnosed bipolar. It's just every child goes through ups and downs. Every child goes through extremes of behavioral challenges, through behavioral extremes. I can't stop using that word. It's just bipolar is extreme up and down. It's mania and depression. It's everything in between. So I had already experienced every extreme in my life. It's just the doctors didn't peg me with bipolar disorder type 1 until I had lost control of my life. And then it becomes an emergency.
Okay.
So to answer your question, some of the extremes that I had experienced in university were party animal all the time, just ready for action all the time, or no energy at all, just stay in my bed and stay there until the time is right to leave sleep and come out of hibernation. Or the weather is a huge factor. The mood of the people around me is a huge factor. The mood I'm in is the factor, because I'm bipolar, and what mood I am in determines what mood my whole life is in. And people around me either are drawn to myself or I'm drawn to them, and what mood they're in reflects my mood, and what mood I'm in reflects their mood. And so that's why this is a universal a universal topic. It's just everybody goes through ups and downs, and everybody interacts with each other, and you will pass on or receive different cues that will trigger an up or down or everything at once. And so most recently, now fast forwarding to 2014, I was rapid cycling. And rapid cycling is where your mind is cycling through chemicals very, very quickly, and your heart pumps blood through your body, and your mind receives this blood, and electronic signals get passed in your mind through chemicals. And I'm getting very, very specific now, and I don't know all the terminology surrounding the mind, but I do know what I've experienced, and that is a very rapid transition period where your mind goes from happy to sad to angry to everything in between, and extreme, very extreme again. So the most happy you have ever been, and the least happy / most sad you've ever been, and you go through it all in one moment. The blink of an eye you are happy, and the next blink of an eye you are crying, because you were just on the verge of tears but on the verge of laughter at the same time. And that is rapid cycling.
So I was listening to CBC this morning, and there was a doctor, and unfortunately I didn't write down his name, but he was talking about depression specifically, and how prominent it is in the population. And certainly we've all heard the statistics that maybe as much as 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4 adults will have some form of...
That's 25% of the population.
That's 25% of the population, yes. Some form of, let's call it a brain dis-ease. Okay, brain dis-ease. And he was hypothesizing that the reaction, the depressive reaction, is more like an allergic reaction to stress, rather than, I guess he was trying to explain the difference between a chemical imbalance and an actual reaction, that we're allergic to stress and this is how our body responds. And as part of that discussion was the reminder that your brain cells don't actually touch one another, that they're all separated by tiny little spaces that the electrical charge has to leap over, or substance has to pass through. and that depression and dopamine and serotonin are tightly connected.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of serotonin, that we are absorbing it too quickly, so it's not able to carry the message. And dopamine is like the happy, the upper, not sure what's the word that I want.
But upper threshold?
Well, it lifts you up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an upper, whereas...
Dopamine brings you up, serotonin...
Serotonin is kind of a stabilizer.
Mm-hmm.
And it also must bring you up, because without it you
fall down.
You fall down. So I'm not sure what his theory was in terms of treating the allergy to stress, because with other allergies we have anti-allergy, we have allergy pills.
There are pills for mental disorders as well. And it's not the answer for everybody, because personally I have distaste for pharmaceutical companies and pharmaceutical medications, because it's not transparent, and you don't know what's in a lot of the things you put in your body these days, never mind pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
And pharmaceutical companies are patented. They are private companies that are putting drugs together in different combinations, and they don't tell everybody exactly what's in them until people start taking them. And they go through the whole process. They go through these drugs have been around since the beginning of time on this planet. It's just now people are putting them together in a way that hopefully will help people and not mess them up even more. And personally, there's a lot of pharmaceutical prescription medications that I have taken that do not agree with my system or my body. And if somebody's going to force them into your body, they better know what they're putting in those pills, because I'm not going to take them unless you can tell me what they're going to do to me. And the system doesn't give a shit if you want to take these pills. You need them according to the doctors, and you're going to take them whether you like it or not. And that is the problem with the system that I don't like, and I think a lot of people don't like, because the system will feed you what you need, and what you need is what the doctors tell you need, and what the doctors tell you need might not be what your body actually needs. And so only you, the person taking the prescriptions and the drugs and whatever it is that you're putting in your body, food, vitamins, everything, only you, the person who's taking them, knows what your body will accept. And it's scary, because at some point, if you dial the right number on your phone and the system gets involved, either the police, emergency services in general, just police, fire, and ambulance, if you involve them in your life, you're no longer in control of your life, because they will take control. And for me, that's happened twice in my life now, where the system has taken control of me and I didn't want to give control to the system. So in 2008, in September, when I was on the other side of the country, literally, the system came and got me after my dad was involved, and my mom was involved, and my sister was involved, and my girlfriend at the time was involved. And the system brought me back to Ontario and put me inside a facility called South Lake Hospital, and I was no longer in control. It was taken from me. Now, I voluntarily came back to Ontario under the presumption that I was not going to be asked to give control back to the system. We all came through the system. We all were born in a hospital. Maybe we weren't born in the system. Maybe you were born at home, but you were born into this world. Yeah. And so now you get into these questions and you get into these paths of your life that you choose, but at some point in your life the path was provided for you and you just had to walk the path. And the path is not always a path that you choose. Sometimes the path is a path that is chosen for you.
So if you were to offer some advice, and this might need to be in two parts.
Okay.
If you were to offer some advice to another person who shares your diagnosis, what would you advise them so that they can maintain control? And then the other part of my question has to do with the caregivers, but think about those that share your diagnosis first.
That is a very complex question because it's different for everybody. For myself, to remain in control, it just has to be left to me. I am in control of my life. I am in control of my own person, of my mind and my body and my soul, and that is mine, and I do control it. It's just in the outside world, in reality, the place where everybody belongs on this earth, it's not always all about you. And so even if your world is all about you, you have to recognize that there are other people, and you have to recognize that everybody has to share the world. And so therefore, to remain in control of yourself, you have to recognize that there are everybody else, and you have to recognize that you have to keep that in mind when you start taking certain actions towards getting to where you want to be. And so if you want to be on the moon, then you're physically not going to get to the moon unless you are an astronaut. And if that's your path in life, then start taking steps to get into a spaceship and get into an astronaut suit and go to the moon. But physically, I've never desired to quite get all the way to the moon. But in my mind, because people with bipolar are on the lunar system, and so when there's a full moon and you can see it and you want to go there, and I'm speaking figuratively now and metaphorically, but if you want to go to the moon, then in my mind I can just go there and come back and everything's fine. But if you physically want to go to the moon and now your physical actions are taking you're physically acting on what your mental goals are, then you still have to recognize that there's a lot of space between here and the moon, and you have to pass through it physically and mentally, and it all has to be one single action. It's all divided into one single action, so you take a step to the place where you want to be, and mentally and physically you have to align yourself into a reality that everybody else is in. So I don't know if that answers your question at all.
Well, sort of. But in our previous conversations, you and I have talked about how you are responsible. Yes. For yourself.
Yes.
Which requires you to be, I would suggest, hyper aware of your own situation, your own feelings, your own stage in the cycle, so that you can function within the norms of what our society can endure. So, the fact that, and I did not realize that you were on the lunar cycle.
I think everybody is. Everybody's affected by gravity, and the moon is just another gravitational force in our life that, women are on a lunar cycle, men are on a similar cycle, and specifically people with bipolar disorder are more affected by their atmosphere and the people around them and gravitational forces than you might be willing to admit. And medication is the way that the system controls those cycles. So given the right drug combination and the right gravitational force and the right atmospherical temperature, and just everything, your whole world affects you. So the world that you're in is the world you're in, and so you get to choose the world you're in.
So what about on the other end of the cycle? Or at least what do you think tips you over the other way?
So we're talking about down now. So to be depressed, depression is a dark, evil void where the light is shining. But the light is good. Depression is just a void of all light, basically. So, I'm staring into the light right now, but if you were to imagine this place go into sheer darkness and you can't see anything, so, you close your eyes and I can still see the light right now, but, I can just erase all light from my mind, and then you're in a place where there's no light and you can't see light. And so I say hypomania and mania is the light, and depression and anger and isolation is the dark void where there's no light. And so when you're in a place of darkness, most people will seek out the light. And it's hard to find sometimes, because you put yourself in a place in your mind where you don't deserve light, or you feel like the world isn't ever going to show you light ever again, because you're just stuck in this place where it's scary. Are you afraid of the dark is the question. And if you're afraid of the dark, then you're not going to survive the darkness, because the monsters and the demons and the places that pull you down will get you. And so to get out of the darkness, just somebody has to either show you the light, or you have to find the light and just keep following that light to a better place. And sadly, that is either in this world or it's not.
Well, how do we help people to find the light in this world if there isn't somebody there to show it to them?
I don't know. That's a question everybody asks of everybody, and you just have to keep the right people in your life. You have to keep people that care about you. You need to keep people in your life that will show you the light, that will find you in the darkness, no matter where you are. And I'm very fortunate because I have a very good support network. I have a large family that cares about me. I have very good friends, close friends, lifelong friends, people I've known my entire life, or have known me since I was born or before I was born, because our history goes back to the beginning of time, and everybody has a history. Everybody's come from a place where everybody has family, whether they're alive or not. And so it's just to stay in this world, you need to keep yourself surrounded by people who live in this world.
That might be a great place to stop, Cameron.
Okay.
Did you feel comfortable talking in front of the camera?
I did, yeah. I didn't know it's there, and it's my camera, so.
So when you look